Welcome to another Squiggly Show with me, your host, Evan Atwood. And joining me is our guest of honor, Dolya Gavanski. Thank you for joining me. Oh, it's so bright.
Hello, hello.
Hello. You all may know Dolya from Overwatch, where you are the voice of Zarya.
Yeah.
But you also have an amazing film career.
Oh, yeah. Done quite a few things.
Yes. Would you mind telling us a little bit about some of the things you've done?
Well, where do I start?
Let's.
Trained in Moscow and London as an actor.
You went to college at Cambridge, I believe.
And I also went to Cambridge, yeah. At first I trained as an actor, then I went to university. And I've done lots of theatre, and from theatre I moved into also TV, film, radio drama, voice. And I keep on combining everything, I guess.
Going back and forth with whatever strikes your fancy.
Well, yeah, ideally. I mean, as long as the part is good and the text is good,
Excellent.
it works for me.
Now, working in so many different mediums,
Yeah.
you've done film, television, radio drama as well. Do you find that you prefer the voice work over the on-screen acting or on-stage acting? Do you have a particular preference?
Oh, it's difficult because they're so different, you know,
Sure.
they're in some ways different. I mean, in others they're not. In the end of the day, you know, you have a character, you have to bring some truth to it, and you have to interpret it. So there are similarities, but because obviously voice happens, you know, nobody is looking at you, I guess, when you are doing it. Apart from the people in the studio, there is a certain freedom which comes with that, and it's great. I love it, and you know, you don't have stage fright, or you don't have millions of other things to kind of worry about. You just act, and I like that a lot.
That's good.
Yeah.
Excellent. And now, where did your passion for acting start? Was that something early on, or is it something you discovered later?
Difficult. I mean, I'm not one of those people that, oh my God, all my life I just wanted to do acting. I guess when I was a teenager and a bit silly, I just thought, oh yeah, I'll just do acting. And
Wonderful.
then one thing followed after the other, and then you just kind of find yourself being that.
Wonderful. And so you started with theater then?
I started with theatre, yeah.
And that was around when you were a teenager?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I did ads and things like that.
Oh, you did ads and stuff at the same time?
But very
fun.
Funny. Yeah.
So right from the get-go, you were doing theater, you were doing some television, and then
television and film.
Yeah.
After university. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And so that was after Cambridge? Did you get your
Yeah.
BA, I believe?
Yeah.
I did research.
Yeah.
And now you've been in quite a few films that are very well critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
I have here, you were in The Land of Blood and Honey.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie's film, yeah, about the sort of a love story set during the war in Yugoslavia. But yeah, she was my director.
How was it working with
Oh,
Angelina?
wonderful. She was great, and she was so I don't know, she, you know, warm and yeah, no, I have just best things.
I've heard nothing but amazing things about her directing.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
because she's an actress, she knows how to work with actors and how to make actors comfortable. So no, it was a great experience. Yeah.
Now, have you done any directing yourself?
Yes.
You have.
I've got into documentaries, funnily enough. I don't know how it happened to me, but at the moment I'm finishing my own documentary on women in Russia and strong women. So you must all see it once it comes out.
Oh, wonderful. Do you have an idea of when that will be coming out?
Well, hopefully I'll finish it by the end of the year, and then next year.
Also, we're looking sometime in 2019?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So hopefully, you know, we'll do the festival circuit, and then, maybe other places.
And now, are you on social media that people could follow you and find out when that's coming out?
So my name, well, on Instagram, I'm Dolya, and then 3 underscores, so it's just Dolya. And on Twitter, it happened very funnily, I don't know why, but it's my name, but without the A, so DOLYGAVANSKI. I think I made a mistake, and then afterwards it was too late.
It gets tricky to change it afterwards.
Yeah. So it just, yeah, but that's, and also, yeah, I have my own film company where I do my films, Thea Films.
And
So,
does that have a website?
Yeah.
Wonderful. And what would that be?
Thea Films.
Thea?
Thea Films.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I
So,
guess, yeah, it's a kind of, yeah, I don't know.
so we all get to follow you and find out when your documentary is coming out.
Please do, yeah.
So what was the
Please do.
process creating your own documentary? Did you come up with the idea yourself, or did you work with other people to kind of come up with the concept?
I don't know, it's sort of really happened.
Documentaries tend to happen just organically.
It's a funny one because, you know, I used to live in Russia and I've been living in Britain for most of my life now, but it kind of, that thing always stays behind, you know, what was it like and what was it really like? And so, yeah, I did other things, you know, I started writing as well. I think it came out of the writing. And then one thing followed up the other, and suddenly this idea on women and the sort of the Soviet past in Russia grew out of, I think, various factors. It's difficult to pinpoint one, but then we did an exhibition in London. I was invited to sort of do some short films based on archives, and it was called Superwoman, Work, Build and Don't Whine, which was essentially what it used to be like. And then suddenly I thought, well, since I've done this, I might as well develop it further and
into a full documentary.
So yeah.
Now, is it more interview and conversational based, or is it more just historical context?
Well, it's a sort of, well, I'm kind of in some ways guiding through it.
Oh, so you're hosting. You're hosting through the documentary.
Yeah, I am. I'm a character in it.
Fantastic.
And maybe even Zarya will appear as somebody because you know. The sort of, yeah, because it's part of me, obviously I've played quite a few parts, and quite a few Russian parts, and what does that really mean, you know? And so, yeah, I have a series of very interesting women, but not just talk, you know, situations and characters, you know. I think you need to see it, but it is about strong women, and what does it take, really? Because it's not easy.
Oh, no. And speaking of strong women, you play Zarya, the strongest woman in the world.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It's very.
I look at it, don't I?
I'm seeing it. It's in the biceps.
Yeah,
I see it in the biceps.
I have my special skin.
Awesome. So now I wanted to ask you, I've actually been very fortunate enough to be able to interview a couple of the other voice actors that have worked on Overwatch. I spoke with Johnny Cruz at a previous event, Keith Silverstein, is Torbjorn, and they were characters that were very initial in the conception of Overwatch. And talking with them, like, they didn't really know what this project was that they were getting into. The game wasn't out yet, but Zarya was brought in a little bit later.
Well, she was also one of the sort of first ones as well. But I didn't know that it's going to be such a big game, and you know, you get your job as an actor and you go and do it and you don't think about it. Oh, you know what.
So what was that like, kind of finding out that there was this huge, like, almost immediate outcry of fans for this game?
Well, it was interesting.
It's a smash hit.
Yeah. I mean, the week before it came out, Ande Toas was the sort of voice director, which is wonderful, from Blizzard. She came over to London and she told me that I don't really understand what is following and what is this game, because already even before it came out there was talk and lots of interest, and I mean, suddenly my social media started behaving differently and getting songs and things like that, and I was like, oh my god, this is unbelievable.
It's amazing to see how incredibly passionate fans of Overwatch have been, and it's become a huge phenomenon, and now there's like competitive Overwatch leagues. It's now a sport.
Yeah.
You are now permanently a part of an internationally recognized sport.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I didn't even know until recently.
It's still very recent, but it's amazing to see. And how does that make you feel?
Well,
it's a bit daunting, I'd imagine.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. I mean, No, I just feel very privileged and lucky that it kind of happened to me because you come to this Comic Cons and you happen, don't happen, and then suddenly things like this you really appreciate.
And what was it like crafting Zarya?
Oh, great fun.
I mean, did the character come out of the written dialogue, or did you have an idea of where you wanted it to go going into it?
But it's interesting. I mean, with voice acting, or the way obviously Blizzard worked in this game, you have a line and then you do it 3 different ways, and then I was in London, and then the main part of the team was in LA, so they had a London person, and so we would do it in evening in UK time. And you do it 3 times, and they go, no, we want you to go this way, that way, and then you kind of find it together. And I think over the time, she just kind of grew as well.
It just happened organically.
Yeah, happened organically, and suddenly, you could see the writer maybe getting inspired and writing some funny lines which before were not there. Yeah. So I like the kind of suddenly the sense of humor Zarya got, and the kind of quirkiness about her as well. And the fact that, like all of the other Overwatch characters, I think they're just there. They're here, I'm about this. They don't doubt themselves. They're out there. They do their stuff.
Confident, larger-than-life characters.
Which is unlike in real life. I think everyone has some insecurities, whereas there it's, no, here I am.
And I think that's definitely a huge reason why the game has resonated with so many people, is we see all of these characters that are so much like, the confidence that we wish we could have. And I think Zarya is just chock full of confidence. It's amazing. Now, last night, when we were doing the initial Guest of Honor panel, you had mentioned a little bit some of your favorite voice lines and how some things kind of grew organically out of that. I was wondering if you might share with some of these fine, privileged folks here who weren't maybe here last night.
The humorous, I mean, I want to hug you like a big, fuzzy Siberian bear. Oh, which one? I don't know, I like
the push-ups one.
Oh,
that was really fun.
Get down, give me 20.
I want to right now. I'm convincing
Come
you.
on.
Should I? Should I?
Come on.
Audience? All right. Fine. So, while I'm doing push-ups, what was it like working on the trip?
Oh, the trip was great. Come.
Ask me to do it. I'll do it.
Just stretch before you do.
I'm just going to leave the jacket there.
It was a little warm-up, wasn't it?
Good. No, that's my workout for the week. So working on the trip.
Working on the trip. It was great. It
was Steve Coogan.
Steve Coogan and Rob Ryden, who are these wonderful British international actors and also comedians, and Michael Winterbottom, who is a great director. And so the way we worked on it was, there was a scripted, really, dialogue and scenes, but around it we improvised, and it was a great experience with those 2 comedians, especially because they do it on the top of their...
Improvisational scenes are incredible. You wind up finding even better dialogue. Just like you were saying with Zarya, is working with the writers, coming out with new dialogue lines. Now, were there any dialogue lines, I do want to ask, with Zarya that you yourself had kind of come up with in the moment?
But the thing is, you don't have completely new lines, but sometimes you can sort of say, well, actually I think this works better, or as you're doing it, you can kind of adjust a certain line.
Yeah.
But they're really well thought out, and they've spent many, many years thinking about those characters, so you wouldn't dare to...
You don't want to change it all the way. Was there anything that you made kind of uniquely your own?
Oh, I don't know now. You see, because the first time when we started recording, it was now almost over 2 years, isn't it?
That was, I think, 2015, 2016.
Yeah. And
Around there.
yeah, and the way the sort of my brain works, I guess, because sometimes you have to memorize lots of lines and memorize, you kind of do something and then it just goes away as soon as you finish it.
Well, if you have, an entire book of lines you have to get through.
Although, with voice acting, you don't have to memorize them, they're sort of there, but I think so many lines go generally through your system when you're an actor that you kind of daze out sometimes. Yeah.
Now, aside from the initial principal voice acting for Zarya, I was curious how often you might go back for if they need additional dialogue for seasonal events.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Overwatch is known for seasonal events, and I was wondering if that was something that they had kind of planned a little bit early on, or if they bring you back on occasion to do some supplementary work.
So yeah, there was a period in time where I was sort of being brought back quite a bit, and I think they're probably establishing many lines that they can actually even use in different situations afterwards. So you don't even know that what exactly it is for, but also Zarya is also another game, The Heroes of the Storm, that Overwatch has. So for that one, that was a separate kind of thing, and she's even funnier in there, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's got more of a kind of quirkiness part.
I haven't played Heroes of the Storm yet.
Yeah.
What was that one like?
Oh, it was great. It was still Zarya, but Zarya actually kind of even more funny and
Gets to have a little bit more
I think
say.
there's sort of even like a dance and
Oh, that's amazing.
So there was a period of a year and a half where I was brought up for Overwatch quite regularly, and you never know what is happening, how it is developing, when will they call you or not, or whether they've got so many lines now that they can choose and play with.
Yeah. Now, in between film and voiceover, there was the Overwatch animated short, Infiltration.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you were in that one as well.
Okay. Not gonna lie.
I was wondering, was that its own recording session, or was that dialogue that they had gotten previously in a previous session?
God, I mean, remember I did something where I was watching the screen, but you see, because there were so many sessions, I don't know what exactly did they, use for what.
That is perfectly fine.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So I wanted to talk about some of your earlier work here as well. So you had mentioned, moving to the UK and working on the trip. I have here, you were on an episode of one of the longest running series in the UK. You were on an episode of EastEnders.
I've done quite a few British TV things, yeah.
So I was curious, what was it like going and being able to be a part of such a long lineage? Because that show's been going on, I believe, since 1985.
I know there's a few others there, Emmerdale and also this. I mean, it's interesting. Again, it's one of those jobs that for instance, you do theater and you spend weeks rehearsing, then you're performing, and then do this film or that film, and then you do Emmerdale or EastEnders, and people recognize you on the street, so it was interesting. I mean, but it's it's like an industry. It's sort of there is a whole kind of little village built around it, and the whole Indian, you just go and you do your bit and you leave. If you're a regular, I guess it becomes really part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And also, you also appeared as Mona Lisa
Oh, yeah, that
on
was my
Leonardo.
first.
That was a miniseries,
Yes,
I believe.
and with a wonderful actor, Mark Rylance. Yeah, he's amazing. He was Leonardo. And it was my first TV job.
That was the first one.
It was my first TV
wonderful.
job, and it was fun. It's like, is it why? Because she doesn't talk? She just sits.
I mean, for a first
yeah.
TV job, being able to portray the Mona Lisa, one of the most famous paintings in the entire world.
Yeah. No, it's obviously
Was that a surreal experience?
It was, and I mean, partly also because for the first job, and I was very nervous, and there's Mark Rylance, who is an amazing theater actor and film actor and everything, and suddenly this man in a wig runs up to me and says, in Serbo-Croat language, hello, good morning. And it was so sweet of him because immediately kind of made me feel nice and yeah, it was nice. But yes, of course, it was first job on TV.
Wonderful.
And
now,
Mona Lisa.
Oh yeah.
There's quite a bit of pressure there.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. So we've talked a little bit about some of your TV work and your film work and your voiceover work. But I would love to talk about your theater work. I have a background in theater myself, so I was wondering, what sort of performances do you look for? I mean, how involved with theater had you been? Were you
a lot?
Production or just the performance?
I started acting in Russia, in the theater there, and then when I moved to the UK, and I trained as a typical sort of the standard training that one would get in British academies, which is kind of a classical actors training, where a lot of the work is actually based on voice and text, which helped me hugely with after with the games and
doing line stanchion for hours, just marking your diphthongs. Oh
yeah. And I love the theater. I love classical theater as well, and I've done Greek tragedies, Shakespeare, Chekhov's, and modern dramas too. So yeah, it's another.
Do you find that you gravitate more towards dramatic works, tragic works, or comedies?
I don't know, I always tend to get some dramatic parts, whereas I just want to do comedy most of the time.
Comedy is fun. It's tragedy, just sped up.
I think tragedy and comedy, both good tragedy has elements of comedy and vice versa. It's difficult, but at the moment I just want to do something funny.
Good. Were there any particularly shows that you had worked on that you were most excited to be a part of?
I played. Actually, I performed in New York for like a month, and it was a play we first did at Edinburgh Festival, and then we traveled. We had a kind of a world tour, and also spent some time in New York. And my role was, now listen to this. She was a pianist. Christian Marxist transsexual cocktail pianist.
Okay. There's a lot of character. There's a lot of character there to wrap your mind around.
It's quite hilarious because there was this glamorous sort of pianist, and I played the piano on the stage and was there throughout. But in some ways she's everything and nothing. I think why she has all these identities, different identities.
She failed to have a personality herself.
A personality that is
that's interesting.
Any kind of usual limitations, I guess we have. But that was great.
Did you play the piano yourself?
Yeah.
How long have you been playing? Have you been playing since you were young?
Since I was young, and I kind of music was my thing first, and I thought I was going to music, but then
So music was the first love, and then performance kind of evolved from that.
Yeah, I performed with piano. Yeah.
Oh. I always hear about pianists always being involved with it from a very early age. I very rarely come across anyone who got into it later in life.
It's difficult.
And it breaks my heart because that's the one thing, 'cause I love piano. I always wish that my parents forced me to do it when I was young, because I would love it so much more now.
It's one of those things, it's almost you have to be a bit pushed, isn't it? Because what kid likes to sit for hours?
I just wanted to go climb trees.
Yeah, I know. But I always found it a kind of therapeutic, Somebody annoys me, just go and bash on the piano.
just get all the frustrations out on the keys.
And then everybody in the house would get the message.
Now for, I'm sure most of us here are huge fans of you and your work. That's why we're here today. But I want to see what you're a fan of. What are some of the things that you draw inspiration from, be it films, theater?
Yeah. Ooh, difficult. I mean,
who are your acting heroes?
My acting heroes. It's very difficult for me to pinpoint one. I mentioned, some of the people I work with, I thought they're amazing, and I don't know. I just love good stories, whether they come in the format of film or theater or games or radios.
Books.
It's books.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's something to do with storytelling generally, and whether, it's a certain performer that does amazing, I mean, like, obviously, they're kind of wonderful actors that, love watching, Meryl Streep, Kate Blanchett, and Mark Rylance I mentioned, all the...
Wonderful performance.
Yeah, but it's difficult to say only one thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you see, I kind of...
There's usually like a top 5
I'm like
or
that
10.
part that I told you that has 500 identities.
Oh, yes.
I find it may be difficult just to pinpoint one thing. I don't know why.
That does get, no,
it seems to be my condition.
It is for many, being able to pinpoint it down to one. But, top 20 is also good. Yeah. It's a little bit more freedom to not feel like you're excluding anyone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, I do want to check with the audience here and see if we have any questions for Dolya. I believe we have Jace with a microphone. We have one in the back. Oh, we got Jace coming up with a microphone.
Fire at will. Fire at will. I don't know how to know. Or will. I can do it several times. A different way.
So, I would imagine that when you first did the voice work for Overwatch, you never really thought it would blow up. What was your reaction like when you started seeing fans start recognizing your voice out of the blue, or they go to some of your old YouTube interviews and start quoting Zarya? What was that like?
Kind of the initial Overwatch explosion.
I mean, I was surprised at first, and I think the first thing that came up was this lovely song written, that there's a song and Zarya's biography, and then suddenly you hear my voice, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually very good, and the art and the music then, and everything around it, it's unbelievable. So the kind of, suddenly you feel part of a certain community, which is great, and as I said, I didn't say, oh my God, I'm so amazing now, everyone. It's kind of quite, I feel humble about it, and it's great, Well, yeah, I didn't expect it. It's suddenly to be kind of, the voice and stuff to be put into music, and to have all this.
To see the creativity of fans just really embracing it. Now, I was actually curious myself, after becoming the voice of Zarya, had you had any opportunity to try playing the game yourself?
Oh, I have, and she's difficult to play, isn't she?
Like I said, I've heard horror stories from the other voice actors that are like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I tried hard.
Do you find it fun, though, to be able to kind of jump into this world that you provided a character for?
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily directly act to the characters as you would on screen or on stage, but be able to do that and then be able to move around as that character in this new world.
No, but it's amazing to see it. It's a sort of, but it's like, I think it's all, whether it's games or whether it's a film or theater, it's a sort of a joint effort by people. It's never one person that does everything. Yeah. So obviously the visuals are amazing. The text is, the actor comes in and gives this another kind of extra bit. But it's kind of being able for all of it to kind of work together. That's in some ways the beauty of it. And yeah, it was great. I mean, to see myself in action and to be the strongest woman in the world. I mean, I don't think I would be cast in film doing that, but you never know.
One of these days, it's just a few more days at the gym. That's it.
That's it.
You'll be fine. Now, are there any other Overwatch characters that you particularly enjoy kind of seeing sort of the interaction between? Because I know a lot of the dialogue in the game quite often will be linked with other characters. Now, are there any other characters that you think interact with Zarya well?
Oh, I don't know. I think probably you guys will be better at that. I mean, my Zarya is like, bad attempts at playing her. In sort of, I don't know. Who is she? Who do you?
That's all good. And now, do we have any other questions from the audience? Oh, we've got a hand up.
Do you have any interesting or fun stories from the recording booth?
Oh,
They throw any lines at you that just caught you off guard?
well, I think you also have a specialist in like dying, waking up from dying, with and different kinds of damages and different kinds of that, and so it's kind of I always find that you're standing there in this kind of booth, and there is LA on one line, and London is here, and you just have to completely let go of any inhibition in order to reproduce such things. It's difficult to kind of pinpoint one little thing, but it's
Wonderful.
I think all these different types of deaths are always quite amusing.
And I think we have a couple other hands up.
So when you took on the role of Zarya, did you already know what she looked like, or were you shown later on? And if you were shown later on, or if you didn't know what she looked like?
So basically, I first auditioned, and the audition was reading Zarya's biography, essentially, but like Zarya. And I think what I looked for is, yes, there is a strong woman, but also there is a softness and heart, and to find that balance, I guess. I didn't see her. Once I got the job and once we started, then they kind of showed.
They show you some of the concept art.
Yeah, which was kind of quite fun, because maybe, who knows, maybe we would have seen her first. I would have probably maybe even read that differently. I don't know. Yeah.
Wonderful. So getting that initial read on the character without any other empathetic character.
Yeah.
That she feels a lot. And so many of the characters in Overwatch, I think, are really based on feeling. And I think that's such a huge...
And I think also it's good what she represents in some ways. She's sort of, again, not somebody, it's not the usual, oh, I'm a sexy girl and I'm going to get everyone. I think I quite like the fact that, she's different and that, together we are strong. I think there's such a telling line of her. It's not just about her, which nowadays I think so much stuff is just me.
And it's not just that she's physically strong, but I think that the strength that Zarya as a character embodies is emotional strength.
Yeah.
And strength of connections with other people. And I think that's huge. And it's wonderful that you're able to convey so much of that with your delivery.
Thank you.
Now, I know we have a couple other hands here in the audience. We have Jace out with the mic. Thank you, Jace. Your outfit is adorable.
So, would you say that when you first got the job, would you say that your initial take on voicing Zarya has stayed consistent throughout your time voicing her, or has it changed? For example, I remembered Matt Mercer mentioning that initially when he was reading McCree, he thought of him as this a rough and tough, completely murderous outlaw. But then he completely relaxed, and and what you ultimately got was really different from what you initially thought. So in your case, was Zarya, did the character of Zarya sort of change as you record her, or was it consistent through and through from the get-go?
Yeah, so the first session, when we did, I can't remember how many lines, but it's really where we set the character. And once we set the character, then whenever I would come and have another session, I would also listen a little bit, to get the right tone and to get the right accent and feeling, because he needed to be a certain defined individual. I couldn't have jumped around, and so I think the first session was kind of defining her more, but then, as I said, it developed in terms of new traits to Zarya were brought up more, like the humor and stuff, but in terms of the voice and the placing of Zarya's sound, it's much deeper than my usual one, and the accent and all of that had to be established really from day one. Yeah.
Wonderful. Excellent. Any other hands up in the audience? Oh, we have somebody up front here, Jace.
So for someone like interested in becoming a voice actor, so what kind of like practice or training should you look at in order to like get those skills that you use in order to
You know,
do
it's.
it?
I think acting generally, different things work for different people as well. I mean, some people say imitate, or I don't know. I found in my case, it helped me big time that I am basically classically trained actor. What does that mean? That you learn how to stand, how to project, how to work with the text, and you know, even the classical text help you big time because there are rules, there are verses, there is a rhythm, there is a music. So you kind of train your ear and your tongue to be able to embrace a line and to do things with a line. So anything that helps you to make, first to free your voice, and I think both of us, it's a physical thing as much as, you know, the other kind of, let's say, also obviously, you know, diction and things like that, but to free your voice, to train your voice, and to have a certain feeling for the text, for the rhythm, for the music of it. I keep on going about the rhythm and music, maybe because I do have
Theater.
some music
It's classical
background.
training, yes.
But also because, you know, if you, I mean, can you imagine if I was talking like this all the time in the same voice, on the same line, with the same rhythm? It gets pretty boring. So you need to kind of be able, you know, to kind of
Yeah.
give it a bit of spice.
People don't often think of speaking as being inherently musical, but it is.
Yeah.
Every line delivery is going to have its ups and its downs, and every line delivery is going to have a certain flow.
Yeah.
And so much of that, I think, comes out of like you said, classical training. So many things are going to, if you are interested, so many things can support that. You know, taking regular acting classes, learning to sing, any of those
Yeah.
things are going to strengthen that instrument.
And in the end of the day, it's about being in the part. And then what does that mean? It's a whole other thing. But you need to kind of follow the thought process of that character, which is essentially acting in some ways. You need to do acting.
There's no voice acting without acting. Excellent. Now, in addition to Overwatch, I know you had also done some other video game voice acting. I know Company of Heroes 2
Yeah.
you were in. I was wondering, so from my understanding, Overwatch has been the most recent game
Yeah.
that you have done voice acting for. No? Have you done
I've
something?
just finished the Age of Empires. That was
Oh!
amazing. Yeah.
Oh, fun! Oh, that's such a big franchise.
So that would be interesting.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
That now, from my understanding of the Age of Empires games, those are more written dialogue, less impact action.
Yeah, and it, because you go into different empires, so I'm the Tsarina one, and I kind of, yeah, it's more, yeah, it's not as action, it's more sort of, I don't know.
So I was going to ask, and then certainly Age of Empires would go into it. What has been kind of your experience with different types of games?
Well, it's great. There's another one I did. My brain is sort of met with Tiger. It's actually Avalanche Productions. It's a great one because that one is essentially I'm this scientist who leads the player throughout the game, and it's a kind of a nature. It's environmental. It's in Siberia, and there are bears and things and everything. And so that one it's just me and the player. So it's very different, isn't it? Because there is no
Not combat. It's
yeah.
it's conversation. It's conversational with the
Yeah.
player.
Yeah,
So
rather
you're
than yeah, me
Combat.
fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Company of Heroes, also there is quite a bit of combat
Yes.
in there.
A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Wonderful.
good to that.
Getting a little bit of everything through gaming.
Yeah.
You know, getting to do longer dialogue and then doing the action and stuff. Now, do you find that you have any hurdles approaching a character through voice acting that you may not have expected coming from a classical training background?
Hurdles, in terms of obstacles.
Obstacles, yeah, things that you had to overcome, that you didn't expect to be a part of the challenge of voice acting?
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, what has been the biggest challenge, and sometimes still is, you know, they throw an Australian accent.
Oh yes,
It's-
that wasn't me. I didn't do it.
I'm joking. No, but because English
I had to
is-
do it too.
No, because English is not my first language. So obviously, for me, you know, the training with the language was partly became the training of the voice as well, because you know you need your tongue and your placing is in different spots. So you really need to work extra hard sometimes to be able to act in a different language.
Yes.
So that was my big
Just the language barrier.
The language, yeah.
Now, have you found that performing as a voice actor and focusing so much on dialogue lines, has that helped kind of establish and grow that?
You mean the language itself? Yeah, no, of course. But you know, it all started with the training and with you know with the whole thing. But yeah, I love it. And then also lots of you know radio dramas. And I just generally feel very comfortable now in doing you know, I don't know, is it voice acting or acting with voice?
Acting with voice. Now,
My voice. I'm
going-
acting anyway, but
Excellent.
you just hear the voice.
Now we are going to be ending here pretty soon
Okay.
because you have another signing that you're going to be doing.
Okay, yeah.
Is that correct? Yes.
Yes, now we only have like 15, 20 minutes if anyone would like to come because we sort of had to stop.
Yeah, so we're going to be wrapping it up here. I think we've got time for one more audience question, and then you will be going back over to the autograph area, and you'll be holding a paid autograph session there until about 5:20.
Yeah, something like
Perfect.
that.
There were a lot of people that weren't able to get to you earlier.
Yeah, it got a bit.
So if you were trying to get an autograph earlier and you couldn't, we're going to have another brief paid autograph session. But we have time for one more question if we have somebody in the audience here. Excellent. Fire away.
Yes. Hi. So I've been hearing a lot of the positive things about Overwatch that you have to say. As a big, huge Zarya player, I'm wondering if you've ever experienced any negativity from anyone or heard of any negative thoughts towards Zarya.
But you know what is interesting? I obviously when I come and sign autographs, negative people don't come to sign to get an autograph. But here and there online, I can sort of see some replies, and I've had what I find interesting. I've had women, especially coming up to me, being very happy, that here I am, Zarya, and so on, and feeling that Zarya doesn't get enough. I was just say the certain part of the community is quite tough on Zarya, and they're quite upset about that. I don't know, why is that? Well, why do you think is that, really?
Sometimes people fear a strong woman.
Let's hope it's that. Sorry? And I've also had she does, and I also had I have had quite a lot of girls. I mean, I've done quite a few. The last one was London MCM convention, and quite a few girls coming up to me saying how they love the fact that Zarya is not a usual, looking certain way and just running around, I don't know, being sexy and killing everyone, because that's not really the reality usually. And then she does represent the other, and I think it's so important we have the other. And maybe the other frightens people sometimes, and that's why there are reactions.
It was great. We mentioned it last night at the initial Guest of Honor panel that we're seeing in video games and animation so many more positive and progressive female characters in gaming and in animation and in film in general, and you are a huge part of that. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Give it up for Dolya.
Thank you.
And again, Dolya will be going to the autograph section over on that direction I am pointing to until about 5:20. So
Yeah.
if you missed getting an autograph earlier, now is the time to do that.
Thank you.